So this is one of the most important elements, organizing the whole agenda, not just really bringing random famous people together, although they might be relevant, but the art is really to putting them together so it reads like the whole day really makes sense.
Do you want to impact the world and still turn a profit? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Growth Everywhere. This is the show where you'll find real conversations with real entrepreneurs. They'll share everything from their biggest struggle to the exact strategies they use on a daily basis. So if you're ready for a value-packed interview, listen on. Here's your host, Eric Sue.
Before we jump into today's interview, if you guys could leave a review and a rating and also subscribe as well, that would be a huge help to the podcast. So if you actually enjoy the content and you'd like to hear more of it, please support us by leaving us a review and subscribe to the podcast as well. Thanks so much. Hello, everybody. I have a friend and a special guest today. His name is Vasil Azarov. He's the CEO of the Growth Marketing Conference, and he has a lot of other things going on, which I'll let him speak to in a little bit. Vasil, how's it going?
Great, Eric. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, tell us what your story is.
Sure. Well, let me tell the story from the very beginning then. I was in marketing and event space for the last 10 years, and I was involved in production of some of the largest digital marketing events back in 2009, and I was always passionate about events, people, and marketing. My personal belief that events are the future of marketing and sales in general, because their experiences and events are the best vehicle to connect people. And this is something that I was passionate from pretty much as long as I remember myself. And one of the days when I decided to go on my own and was looking for my new venture, previous marketing event got sold to United Business Media. I met some guys who eventually became my partners. They were running a small community up here in Silicon Valley called Startup Socials. And they were really passionate about connecting and empowering entrepreneurs. So I joined the team and eventually connected the dots by bringing together marketing element to it, producing Startup Marketing Conference first in 2013, which eventually outgrew into Growth Marketing Conference, which now brings together over 2,000 people every year, and we host events in 15 different cities around the globe, starting from small marketing workshops, leading up to our big event happening in December every year. And this year we're doing it in San Francisco.
Awesome. So there's a couple of marketing conferences out there. There's a lot actually. So why go into this space? It's a really crowded space. What kind of differentiates Growth Marketing Conference from the others?
Yeah, first of all, just to answer your first question, why to go into crowded space? I have never seen a person who would just decide all of a sudden, I'm going to do an event, specifically if we focus on actually having it as a lifestyle business or generating revenue directly from event, so that would not be passionate about it. So this is more of my inner calling, and this is something that when I wake up, I know that if you don't have to pay me for it, I will do it. Events are extremely hard and extremely stressful too. But I love that stress. I love the challenge. So that's my main reason. That being said, their events are also great in generating traction if you already have a product, if you have a community, but my story is slightly different because events are actually our core product. What differentiates a Growth Marketing Conference from other digital marketing events? I think something that we do, we connect startup marketers and entrepreneurs, as well as some larger companies, enterprise companies, and under the whole umbrella of growth marketing, which is my definition of growth marketing. It's all about the mindset. It's all about the mindset. It's all about some sustainable growth tactics that both enterprise companies could learn from startups and startups could learn from enterprise. So, yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And so how much does it typically cost to attend a growth marketing conference?
So we start early bird from $400 and it goes up to about $1,200. Also, depending if you'd like to get all access pass, it starts from 700 and goes up to 2,000. We always do a speaker dinner and tactical workshops on day one. That's why it's a little bit more expensive. But we also reserve some tickets for self-funded founders, which are $300.
Awesome. Okay. And so how many attendees have you had actually go through all of the the events that you've put together so far?
Oh, okay. So good question. So I was actually doing a little bit of analytics on it. So our community right now is over 100,000 of tech entrepreneurs and marketers, but I would say maybe 30% of them, they've been to our events in person. Either it would be a small marketing mixer, a workshop, or a larger conference. And the rest are the ones who subscribe to our blog and attend some of our virtual events or webinars.
Got it. Okay, so let's say 30% of 100,000 people, right? So we can say 30,000 people. Is that about right? And then we can say maybe your average attendee, maybe we can say that's, I don't know, because you have all different ones, and I'm assuming you give free tickets too. So what is that, like $500 or $600? Is that fair?
Depends, because some of the mixers, they would be $20, so it's really hard to come up with one hard number like that.
Got it. Okay, so would you say you've done over your events, and how long have you been doing the growth marketing events for?
We started in 2000. Startup marketing events we started in 2013, but growth marketing conference really took off in 2015. So it's been 2 years.
Okay, so 2 years since it started to take off. Would you say you've done? Is it fair to say over 10 million?
No, it's not. We actually done probably close to 2 million.
2 million, got it. Okay, but it's just started to take off in the last 2 years. Okay, so that's good growth. And so what I mean, there's people in the audience. People talk about. I preach a lot that it's actually harder to build an audience, and then you can figure out the product afterwards. So for you guys, I mean, what are the logistics behind setting up a conference? What are kind of the mistakes you've made, kind of the pain points around it? Because everybody wants to build an audience, and I'm sure some people are thinking about creating their own conference.
Yeah, some of the biggest mistakes that I see organizers make over and over again when they treat one event as one single milestone or very specific goal that they're trying to reach without thinking about long term and really investing into community building. Because it's never about just one single event. It's always about thinking what is next. How are you going to engage your community after the event is over? We usually plan our calendar about a year in advance. So right now we're already working on our growth marketing conference that is happening in December. And we have a lot of activities leading up to the events. So one of the things that logistics is extremely important. Experience is extremely important at events. But what is even more important is what happens between one event and another. How do you communicate with the audience? How do you engage that audience? How do you make sure that they are aware of your event, they would put it on the calendar, and what are the value that you provide to them besides always asking them to buy a ticket to your next event?
Got it. Okay, great. And how many events do you have on the calendar this year? I've seen a lot more pop up.
Yeah, so we do a lot of events and partnerships right now. So, but our core events that we are planning for this year are in New York, San Francisco special B2B edition event. Then we're doing an international tour in London, Amsterdam, and we're doing a partnered event in Vancouver in collaboration with Traction Conference. And then potentially we are planning to do one event in Atlanta, which hasn't been finalized. And in between, we do a lot of partnered event with SaaStr, a lot of virtual summits coming up. So yeah, definitely have a busy calendar ahead of us.
Great. So with 100,000 people, I mean, how are you currently building the community today? Like, what's working for you in terms of customer acquisition?
Yeah, so the newest, biggest channel of customer acquisition has been virtual summits for us. And this is a really easy way, not easy way, I shouldn't say easy. It's a really fast way to build an audience quickly around a very specific topic as well as to create a lot of content, relevant content that you can provide to your more general community down the road. So this is one of the most recent ones. But in general, I think one of the most efficient channel for all of the in-person events, not just for me, is really word of mouth and creating that unforgettable experience for people when they come to the event. So when they come back to their offices, they just tell everyone. And there are some different tactics that you can use to help that spread. For example, at the Growth Marketing Conference, we just introduced speaker gifts, and we send in bottles of wine with a custom label highlighting Growth Marketing Conference logo. Basically, we're thinking about giving it away not just to speakers, but also attendees, and potentially creating a growth marketing wine club down the road. So people will have opportunity to gift each other a bottle of growth marketing wine, and that way we get higher brand recognition.
Right, and they remember you, right? It's just like when you buy a good gift for somebody, they always remember you afterwards.
Absolutely, and we've been having a lot of people tagging us on Facebook and just texting me saying, "Oh, I just opened a bottle of growth marketing wine." I really encourage all of the conference organizers and marketers to be very thoughtful when it comes to speaker gifts and swag that you're putting out there. Because the worst case scenario, you don't want anybody to have some kind of, a bottle opener, beer opener that they just put it in the drawer and never use it or something like that.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I mean, it's much better than just buying like a fruit basket or something like that. I think for some of our clients, we ended up putting some more thought into it and getting some nice headphones if they actually had the headphones. And guess what? That actually translates to more revenue at the end of the day. There's actually a book out there that's called Giftology that talks about the whole concept of gifting people. Could be your customers or your clients in general. So highly recommended to everybody. But going back to the conference. So, how do you talked about, kind of the pre-show is, you go through, long workshops. There'll be a speaker dinner as well. How do you structure kind of the main days? I know you've had some heavy hitter names in there. How do you go about putting it all together?
Yeah, so this is one of the most important elements, organizing the whole agenda, not just really bringing random famous people together, although they might be relevant, but the art is really to putting them together so it reads like the whole day really makes sense. For example, one of the conference that we planned in 2015, the format was user acquisition, conversion, and then customer retention. So that's how the day would unfold. And we would encourage either it would be a keynote speaker or not encourage. We actually would arrange a day accordingly. So we would start with user acquisition, then we transition into conversion, then we do panels and talks on retention. On the day before, something that really worked for us well is doing these tactical, actionable workshops as far as on the main day. And we like to host an event in just one large room. As our conference grew right now, we do multiple tracks these days, but we started as everyone being in one room. We feel that way speakers build intimate connection with the audience, and it's really hard to go in depth. That's why on the day two, we do more of I don't want to say general talks, but as far as we always encourage speakers to provide actionable content. But on the day before, we really like to have speakers who can, rather than talk about tactics and processes, they would share their screen and they would show. So workshops on the day one, having general theme on the day two is extremely important.
Awesome. Okay. So, a lot of people talk about when you do conferences, you're kind of aiming to break even. And it seems like you guys are doing, you guys are making money off of it. So, what are your thoughts around that statement? It's like, if you aim to do a conference, you're lucky if you break even. What are your thoughts?
So if you do your first conference, my first conference, we actually made a little bit of profit, but I do have some experience in events and marketing. So that has been a general rule of thumb for everybody, for all of the companies that are hosting their first event and don't specialize in events. If you just break even, it's good enough, but it also depends on the goals. So for a lot of larger brands like HubSpot, they do inbound, and I know that the event might not be profitable, but extremely important for customer retention. So for some of these types of events, it's not necessarily the goal to make a profit. But I personally believe that you can make a huge profit if you do it correctly. So we've been, this has been the only revenue source for us. And it has been very effective, especially after the brand becomes more and more recognizable. It becomes easier and easier. But for everyone who is just starting out, an entrepreneur or marketer, I think breaking even is totally fine. And one of the advice that I always give to organizers who are just starting out is really, if you want to start with events, make a commitment that you will do it for the next couple of years. And it will always become easier, one event after another.
Great. And let's say it's a newbie entrepreneur. They don't know what to do. They don't have experience like you do. What kind of people should they be turning to? I've heard from people in the past say, the thought is to go with event planners, but some people say you probably don't want to go with event planners. So what are your thoughts? Who should you go with? Who are the critical hires?
It's interesting. So we just put an event together last week dedicated to event marketing and event production called Event Marketing School. And we talked about it quite a bit. I would recommend actually to learn the ropes yourself by starting a small meetup and not necessarily focusing on producing a larger conference off the bat. If you can afford event planner or at least event consultant in the very beginning, it's not the worst route to go. I wouldn't hire somebody to execute everything for you. If you'd like to build a community and make it a long-term goal to produce high-quality events, I would hire somebody to consult you and maybe put together a strategy and maybe help execute your first event. So we had at Event Marketing School, we had Gretchen, who is a chief operating officer at Suster, and she was telling her story that she actually hired Max from Sales Hacker to help her produce the first event, which was extremely successful, and she learned a lot, and it gave them a great jump start to start producing larger events year after year. But you don't have to do it. You can start small. If you don't have a budget, you can start meetup for under $100 for first 6 months and grow your community that way.
Love it. Okay. So what's one big struggle you faced while growing this conference business?
One of the struggles that I'm actually facing right now is that I'm a practitioner, right? I love to be in charge of putting together marketing strategy, to be in charge of experience, and to be really hands-on. But as our event is growing right now, my focus shifted from executing a lot of things when it comes to marketing and creating experiences, putting together agenda, to managing my team members, and they're doing an amazing job. But really the process is around not very structured just yet. And what we're trying to do, especially as we put in more events on the map, is to build that infrastructure for scale. And this has been a huge pain and extremely, extremely challenging, because events is not a SaaS product. It's almost, I feel sometimes that you're scaling unscalable, because you need to scale people, and bringing the right people on board is the key.
Love it. Okay. Well, switching gears here, I want to get into some kind of more tactical stuff. So what's one big change you made in the last year that's either impacted you or your business in a really impactful way?
I can briefly go over both. So one of the biggest tactics that we implemented, something very tactical for us, as we have such a huge, we have relatively large email list, and we heavily rely on email when it comes to ticket sales for our conferences. We created a very clear process on data scrubbing and clearing out all of the bounced emails within a very short period of time. So I work with several virtual assistants to do that. Every single time we get an email, a certain percentage of the emails get bounced. So we're trying to get that bounce rate almost fixed within 2 days time frame. And what I mean by that is we download those bounced emails, we go on LinkedIn, we research the data, we upload the new current emails based on the new titles of company members, and we upload them back to our email marketing automation software. We use HubSpot. And this has really, really helped us keep that list very extremely clean and convert more community members and subscribers into conference attendees. So this is from the company standpoint. And from personal standpoint, something that really helped me drive my business forward as well as evolve personally is to put everything, all my goals, all my ongoing tasks into my Google Calendar and actually schedule time on my Google Calendar specifically for the tasks that I have to do for a specific period of time. So, for example, I use Sunday to plan out my week. And what I usually do, I put together 10 main goals that I want to accomplish by the end of the week. And then what I also do, I look at depending on the scope of the goal, I would schedule a specific time on my calendar to work on the goals. And I also have a midweek check-in. How am I doing on my goals? And then I also track what was the percentage at the end of every week of the percentage of the goals that I was able to accomplish. And then I assign new goals based on that. So this is something personally helped me to make progress as well as contribute to overall progress of our organization.
How about a new tool that you've added in the last year? So it could be, Evernote, it could be, whatever it is exactly. What's one tool that's added a lot of value for you?
So we just added a new tool called Zen Prospect about a month ago.
Yeah.
And this is probably one of the best tools that I have recently seen on the market. There are so many tools in the similar space, and the space is called outreach, and specifically for sales B2B companies. When you schedule emails at scale, when you schedule your cold outreach. So something that Zen Prospect does, not only it helps you to send these emails, and they have excellent reporting features on it, but they also help you to actually get a very relevant leads all in one interface. For example, maybe in the past you had to use MetaMark to get all the data on venture-funded startups that just got funded, or maybe some data from the job listing sites, who is hiring right now. So then Zen Prospect actually allows you to do all of it, and they just give you these leads, and then you can target them. So I just discovered this tool, and I'm using it, and I'm loving it so far.
Great. And so have you tried the other tools in this space? You have Outreach, there's like Sales Loft out there. Have you tried all those tools? And I've heard good things about Zen Prospect, and I'm just wondering, because I've tried all these different tools, at the end of the day, they all seem the same to me, but seems that Zen Prospect, from what I've heard, seems to stick out a little bit versus the other ones.
Yeah, absolutely. So we tried them all. Cold outreach has been actually one of the other big strategies that helped us acquire users for the Growth Marketing Conference, Cold Outreach. So we tried Sales Loft, we tried Persist IQ, which is actually we're switching from Persist right now to Zen Prospect. All of the tools, they have all of the basic functionalities down, but Zen Prospect have some other cool features, such as I mentioned, and I like it at this point, and this is my number one choice.
Awesome. Great. What's one must-read book you'd recommend to everyone?
Must-read books that I recommend to everyone. Recently, I usually do audiobooks all the time because I'm always on the move. So audio. So I listen to Ben Horowitz, Hard Things About Hard Things. So that's usually when I'm on the crossroads, when I'm running my own company, this is the book that kind of always on the back of my mind right now, because it helps you as a founder and CEO of the company to relate to some other very challenging, extremely challenging situations that a more experienced founder was facing. So I love that book, and I listen to a lot of podcasts. So actually I listened to your podcast, yours and Neil's, definitely one of my top fives. Then I love it. And listen to Noah Kagan's podcast that he just launched. Also Startups for the Rest of Us is another great podcast from entrepreneurs and technical marketers. But yeah, I love podcasts because they help you stay up to date.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I mean, there's so much stuff changing all the time, and there's so much trends. It's like, how do you stay up to date? And, just listening. I feel like podcasts are such a cheat code because you can be, at the gym or you can be walking to work, for example, and you get all these hacks. So, love it. And Noah Kagan's I think is insane. I think we're having him on the podcast again soon. So I actually just had a friend that was like, God, this podcast is so good right before we started this one. So highly recommend that one as well. Now, I think what's one blog that you read, every other day, or what's one of your favorite marketing blogs in general? Because you're a growth marketing conference guy.
Yeah, so I don't read one specific blog. I like to check out growthhackers.com inbound and just usually scroll down, see what is going on out there. I know that Conversion Excel, they produce very high quality content, so it usually shows up as as a part of some of the most upvoted ones. But overall, I don't have really a favorite one. I just try to see what is happening out there and just read based on some of the communities that I'm following.
Cool, man. All right, Vasil, this has been awesome. What's the best way for people to find you online?
The best way is to connect with me on LinkedIn. Check out Growth Marketing Conference if you are an entrepreneur or marketer, and I would love to hopefully meet you there.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Growth Everywhere. If you loved what you heard, be sure to head back to growtheverywhere.com for today's show notes and a ton of additional resources. But before you go, hit the subscribe button to avoid missing out on next week's value-packed interview. Enjoy the rest of your week, and remember to take action and continue growing.